Opening sequence. History doesn't always tell the whole story. We grow up believing the War of 1812 was simple. Napoleon invades Russia, Moscow burns, winter crushes the French army, the Russians triumph. It's a clean, heroic, almost cinematic tale. But tonight, we step into a world where the official version begins to crack, where medals, monuments, and letters from Napoleon himself whisper a different truth, a truth so strange it feels impossible. What if Napoleon never intended to destroy Russia? What if he believed he was fighting a completely different power, one erased from our maps? Welcome to the mystery of the lost empire. The familiar myth. For 2 centuries, the West has seen this war as a clash of titans. Alexander I of Russia versus Napoleon Bonaparte, ruler of Europe. Most Americans remember it vaguely. Moscow burned, Napoleon froze, Russia stood proud. But imagine taking that schoolbook version and flipping it upside down. Because inside Napoleon's own letters and military reports, something bizarre appears. He doesn't call his opponent Russia. He rarely uses the name at all. Instead, he writes about Muscovy, Tartary, Asiatic lands, as if he's marching into a forgotten civilization from a fantasy novel. Who was he really fighting? A glimpse into a hidden world. These aren't poetic expressions or exotic vocabulary. They appear in official documents, military dispatches, and maps. To Napoleon, this wasn't the Russian Empire Americans recognize today. It was something older, something different, something powerful. And when we start comparing the artifacts and records left behind, a strange pattern emerges. Not a single anomaly, but dozens. Our journey begins with a single medal. A medal that should not exist. The medal that breaks history. 1912. The Russian Empire celebrates the 100th anniversary of its supposed victory over Napoleon. Exhibitions fill Moscow. Paintings, uniforms, diaries, and medals. On the website of the Russian State Library, one commemorative plaquette stands out. On the front, the profiles of Alexander I and Napoleon, but not as enemies. They face each other calmly, respectfully, almost as partners. Flip it over, and the shock grows deeper. Engraved in bold words, "In unity there is strength." Unity? Between Russia and Napoleon? Why would the victor of 1812 celebrate unity with the man who supposedly burned Moscow? This is not a mistake. It was officially issued, approved by the Tsar's government. Already the ground under our feet starts to shift. More medals. Even stranger. That medal could be dismissed as an odd artistic choice, but the archive contains dozens of them. One shows Napoleon's portrait on the front, and on the back, the newly built Cathedral of Christ the Savior, constructed to honor victory over him. It's like putting the face of an arsonist on a firefighter's memorial coin. Another medal reads Napoleon Rex with Latin letters, except for one, a single Russian letter R. Deliberate, purposeful, meaningful for those who understood. Why would any Russian medal honor Napoleon at all, unless the truth was not enemy versus enemy, but something far more complicated? Respect for Napoleon in Russian culture. To Americans, Napoleon is a dramatic figure. To modern Russians, he's the villain of 1812. But earlier Russian writers didn't see him that way. Pushkin, Lermontov, soldiers' diaries, they respect him, admire his genius. He's not portrayed as a monster, but as a tragic hero. It's as if the hatred came much later, added in the 20th century, a convenient myth for a new political era. So if contemporaries admired Napoleon, if medals celebrated him, if symbols honored him, what really happened in 1812? The saber that shouldn't exist. Now we move to the most shocking exhibit from 1912, Napoleon's personal saber, displayed with pride, but not as a trophy. The catalog states clearly it was a gift from Napoleon to General Pavel Shuvalo, a Russian commander. Why? Because Shuvalov accompanied Napoleon to his exile on Elba. You don't give your personal sword, the symbol of your honor, to an enemy jailer. You give it to a trusted ally, to a man who protected you. This isn't the behavior of sworn enemies. This is the behavior of partners. The uniforms designed by Napoleon. Another exhibit confirms this partnership. Samples of Russian military uniforms donated from the Quartermaster's Museum include designs personally suggested by Napoleon. One example, a Cossack uniform created with his input. Why would the Emperor of France be helping design the uniforms of a supposed enemy? The answer becomes clear. These armies were not preparing to fight each other. They were preparing to fight together, like two branches of one enormous military machine. Monuments wearing the wrong eagle. Artifacts can be hidden in vaults, but monuments stand in the open. And many monuments in Russia, monuments celebrating victory over Napoleon, display at their top not the Russian double-headed eagle, but the single-headed Napoleonic eagle. Tarotino, Kobrin, Smolensk, even the monument to the legendary commander Barclay de Tolly, all crowned by Napoleon's eagle. Coincidence? Hardly. Different sculptors, different cities, different decades, yet the same imperial symbol. As if these monuments weren't celebrating Russia's victory over Napoleon, but a shared triumph. A triumph of a unified European force. But against whom? The letter that changes everything. Now we come to the most decisive piece of evidence, a letter written by Napoleon in Moscow, preserved in the Yeltsin Presidential Library. Napoleon writes to Alexander I in a tone impossible to explain if they were enemies. He calls him my lord, my brother. He writes that he began the war without animosity. And then the explosive line, I would have been willing to sacrifice to you the advantage of entering Moscow first. This is not symbolism. This is not poetry. This is Napoleon saying, I would have let you take the capital first. No conqueror in world history speaks like this, unless the war was not what we think it was, unless the armies were coordinated, unless the burning of Moscow was part of a different conflict, not France versus Russia, but Europe versus something else. The hidden enemy, Muscovy or Tartary. So who was the real opponent? Napoleon's documents mention Tartary, Muscovy, land stretching from the Volga to the Ural Mountains. For centuries, maps showed a massive power in that region, one day simply erased. Could Napoleon's campaign have been a joint European-Russian operation to defeat a rival empire inside the territory we now call Russia? A power strong enough to burn Moscow itself to keep it from falling to the coalition army. A civil war, not an invasion. And after victory, after absorbing the land, the new rulers created a simpler, cleaner narrative. Russia defended itself from the West, a myth easier to teach in schools, easier to celebrate, easier to believe. The real story? Left hidden behind medals, monuments, and letters. Until now. Conclusion: the Lost Empire. So what truly happened in 1812? Did the Russian Empire and Napoleon secretly fight side by side against a forgotten Eurasian power? Did the burning of Moscow mark not a foreign invasion, but the last stand of a collapsing ancient state? We may never know the full truth, but one thing is certain. The neat, simple version of the War of 1812 is beginning to crumble. The artifacts are speaking, the monuments are whispering, and Napoleon's own letter breaks the silence completely. This was not just a war, it was a turning point in world civilization, a moment when an entire empire vanished from history. And the story of that empire, the Empire of Muscovy or Tartary, may be the greatest mystery still hidden beneath the ashes of Moscow. History isn't written in stone. Sometimes it's written in code. Friends, how was the story? I hope you enjoyed it. If you really liked it, don't forget to hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And make sure to turn on the bell icon so you'll be the very first to get the next video as soon as it drops tonight. That's all for now. Stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.